Not everyone can get up every day and look for ways to piss people off. But here at GrokTALK.com, we do that almost every day. I can't tell you how many times someone's lost their SHIT and threatened to end us. But we're still here, pissing people off. It's almost like we enjoy it. And we've been doing it since 2006. That's almost 2 decades of news, politics, and opinion, and now podcasts, and we're just getting started. We believe in principles before parties and politicians. We defend free markets and individual liberty, and if that makes you mad, it makes us smile. We're like Grandma after she stopped caring what other people thought. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GrokTALK, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you. All right, we're back. It's another episode of GrokTALK brought to you by GrokTALK.com and Grok Media LLC. God, I love saying that. And today, as promised, I have a guest. I told you I was going to have a guest. It's the same guest I had last time, many weeks ago. But it's a great guest. It's Mike Rogers. He's a contributor at Grok, has been for many years. And he's often been our foreign correspondent, being once previously foreign himself. Now he's an American, so yeah. How's that going, by the way, being an American?
Well, it's going fine, especially since Britain is so bad right now that I might have to renounce my citizenship for safety reasons. Keir running the government and people getting arrested for praying, for thinking, for posting minor comments, for waving British flags, and oh my God, especially waving St. George's crosses. You know, those things are really evil. They offend people of a certain persuasion because they're the flags of the Crusades. We need one of those about now.
Can you go back? Will they arrest you if you show up for all your honest truth-telling?
I was back in September, but I didn't go to any of the centers of malfeasance and managed to escape it again the other side.
They let you in and out through customs. So that's good. That's a good sign. There's hope you can go back and visit. I know there's family and friends there, of course. But we're here to talk about some other things going on in the world, since there's so many of them. And it's difficult to narrow those down. But a few things recently have happened, and we thought we'd take some time and talk about them and get Mike's thoughts. You've probably already had my thoughts. And like I said last week, enough of me, and let's talk to some other people. So the most recent, obviously, is the No Kings event, No King's Day, which is, of course, a joke. But you tell us why it's a joke, because you actually had a king up until recently.
Well, no, we had a queen for a very long time, and we have a king there right now. Charles III, somewhat ineffectual, somewhat inclined towards woke stuff. But, you know, he's basically a good guy, and he at least knows royal manners, which is more than I can say for some of the princelings. Harry who hooked up with a starlet who should have been better kept on TV.
I don't think you'll find many people, even in the liberal side, who would disagree with you on that.
Right, but that's beside the point. Since we're talking about the UK, which has an actual king, one of the interesting features of the No Kings protest is it popped up around the world in a few selected capitals where people were less likely to get arrested because, after all, that's not the thought that offends the wrong kind of people. So in Britain, they had No Kings protests, although I think they labeled it No Tyrants protests just to make sure that they weren't really taking issue with Charles III, although they should, but we're taking issue with the Orange Man bad, of course. And it appears to be astroturfed everywhere, and it's either youngsters waving Palestinian flags or it's old boomers with funny colored hair and recently escaped from the rest home.
Yeah, it's a rent-a-granny. Yeah, we're having a protest. Here's your sign. Roll yourself out to the curb and tell everybody how much you hate Donald Trump.
And some of them roll themselves out, literally. But even that's not the point. What's interesting is the synchronicity, the fact that they all know where to find the same chants, the fact they all have look-alike signs, that if they're going to get a little bit badly behaved, they all have the same gas masks and so on and so forth, or at least masks. But even more interesting, in key locations, the protests end, poof, at a given hour. The people all disappear like they've got a bus to the nursing home to catch, or at least a bus back home to catch because somebody's paying for it and it isn't them.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, we know that they're very organized. They have a lot of money. Obviously, when you have that much money coming from Arabella investors and Soros and people who donate to him like Bill Gates, who swears he's off the Arabella teat, but is, still continuing to donate to No Kings, because we've shared some of that yesterday or the day before. And of course, it's all kind of, it's about the shutdown this time, isn't it? I mean, obviously, they're still pissed off about the illegals, which was what the June 13th protest was about. But now we've got shutdown fever, Schumer shutdown. The Democrats have destroyed people's lives, their food, their health care in the name of supposedly healthcare.
Yes, it's interesting. We can cover a number of those things actually, but let's take a look at since we're talking No Kings and we're talking shutdown, there's actually an overlap, because one of the things that we've noticed during prior government shutdowns is that the president and his team, especially his Treasury Secretary and Office of Management and Budget, have a large degree of latitude in what they decide to close and what they decide not to close, and that at least some of the money is fungible and they'll keep essential services going. So, in the face of one shutdown, I think it was Bush the younger's team that managed to move money around and keep the essential stuff going, and most people didn't notice until Congress got its act together. And then there was Obama, who wanted to make sure the pain was felt and tried to pin the blame on the Republicans, although tails usually get pinned on donkeys. And he shut down parks and monuments and anything that might hurt the public or might have you show up somewhere and find that what you'd spent your ticket money on was actually not open. So there was a lot of that. And now here we are with Trump and a shutdown caused by Schumer to try and extort, and there's no other word for it, extort the Republicans for things that the one big beautiful bill had tried to cut back. They find that Trump discovers money is fungible, that projects that really aren't going anywhere and for whom the organizers and administrators can't be paid due to the shutdown are going to be shut off and claw back a few billion. That programs that absolutely positively must keep going, like WIC, Women, Infant and Children Nutrition Supplement, etc., is being funded out of tariffs. That's funny. I knew once upon a time some founders said that government should be funded by tariffs, but never mind. And then we find that they managed to scrape enough loose change from under the couch and they pay the troops. They thought that the troops would not get paid and there would be a revolution, but that didn't happen either. And, Trump's been warning them for about 10 days now that given a crisis, he shouldn't let it go to waste, and he will, in fact, cut favorite Democrat programs, shut off money spigots, defund NGOs, and all the things that they least want to happen. And Rush Vought, who is not greatly liked by my wife because he tends to be a little harsh in his enthusiasm to can government workers, but is basically sharpening his lightsaber like Darth Vader with green eye shades. And they're trying to do it right this time, because when Elon Musk joined the government team back in the spring, they were so gung-ho to cut so much that they forgot about the administrative procedures and the proper ways to do a RIF and all of that. And in spite of as well as getting sued 6 ways to Sunday by the liberal judges and the liberal activists and the judges, they basically didn't quite have their act together, and the shutdowns weren't what we'd hoped. But things are different now. And if Schumer insists on dragging this out, a lot of asses are going to get dragged out of offices and will not be coming back.
I was pretty excited about that particular aspect, and I'm looking forward to it, so I hope we get to see it.
I want to see the actual sparks fly here, not because I particularly hate individual government workers. I've met a lot of good ones along the way in my network engineering capacity. It's not the individual guy. It never is. It's the department. It's the mission creep. It's people trying to do things and grab power that were never in the original enabling legislation. Those are the reasons why you need drastic cutbacks.
We also just need to shrink the size and scope of government. There is literally so many things, for example, that are getting shut down as a result of the shutdown, that maybe the states could just do, just unload all of that, stop taking money from them for it, and let them deal with it.
Well, I mean, education should be block granted if, big if, any money from the federal government should go to education at all. I mean, federal education is like the Claremont decision writ large, i.e. some areas are poorer than others, therefore the rich areas should be robbed to pay for schools in the poor areas. Why? The little schoolhouse on the prairie used to turn out people with a vast amount of civic and historical knowledge and a decent modicum of other knowledge that would get them into university if they want it. And
right.
now we have way too many educators and way more administrators than we ever need, and the product has come down and down and down in quality. There is no justification for the Department of Education, and Linda McMahon knows that and wishes to eliminate it. I wish Betsy DeVos had succeeded in term one. And the states that actually look at it critically know, and you may remember this from when Ovid ran for Senate, he actually did the research. Education department mandates account for about 40% of state education expenditure, but they contribute about 17%. And that was a few years ago. It may have changed slightly. But the point is, the mandates aren't worth the paper they're written on. You'd be far better saying, I don't want your damn money and I'm going to tear up your mandates. You could deliver a better product for less money without a penny from the feds.
That's given. I mean, money has absolutely nothing to do with learning. We know that. And Claremont, which you brought up, is obviously evidence of that, since they were many millions of dollars in debt beyond their budget. And nobody's learning anything in Claremont except that the Claremont School Board was incompetent, the administrators were incompetent, the budgeters were incompetent, the accountants, everybody was incompetent. Forget the students.
And you just had an article that said, and they're still incompetent 20 years later, and they're still broke, correct?
Correct. They are just been downhill. No amount of money has solved their problem. The problem is not money. Money's a good thing, and we did mention tariffs in general, and of course, two items we could talk about that are very important on the stage, the world stage, that people are concerning themselves about are China, the tariff war, and tariffs in general.
Well, so let's do tariffs in general. There are two important things about tariffs in general. One of them is that the founders designed the American government to run primarily on tariffs because they didn't want it to run on income taxes or other impositions upon the states and the people, especially not upon the people directly. And the other thing is, especially as a young growing nation at the time, they wanted there to be some cost to selling into our market to give our local manufacturers a chance to ramp up. Well, after the Second World War, we made it so that we were the market for the entire world, and we made it incredibly easy to sell here without insisting that those countries, as they developed, made it equally easy for us to sell there. And we want there to be some tariffs, mostly level with the other countries of the world. Wherever you live in the world, foreign goods should be slightly more expensive to acquire than domestic goods. Not ridiculously so, but somewhat, because you want to encourage local manufacture and you want there to be a penalty for buying luxuries, which then funds your government. And that's actually not a bad approach, and it's an approach that a lot of countries, including ones that manufacture cars, have taken to ensure that fancy luxury cars from, name your poison, Germany, Italy, United States, are disproportionately more expensive than your local cars like Kias and Songyangs and Daewoo's and whatever.
I think it's fascinating. I co-hosted Granite State Live last week on Tuesday, and we had a guest on who had written a book, and I can't remember his name. I apologize, but you can go check it out. And he was talking about how if you can strangle the revenue flows to the government and thereby force reduction in size of government, and then you get back towards what we originally had, which was a smaller government that did a limited number of things, and in turn left a lot of that to the states where it belonged. But that if you kept coming up with ways to fund the government, for example, if tariffs, end up being this great thing and we're getting all this money, well, then we really need to do something about taxes, or government's just going to get bigger. And bigger government, as we all know, is the absolute last thing we want.
Well, and as the unexpected founding conservative, Mr. Trump, one sees evidence out there that it is his intent to return to the means of funding government by tariffs and not by taxes, and that would be an incredible advance. I want to give you an example. I read something just in passing, or heard something in passing, about these assists with law enforcement in certain blue garbage hole cities around the country, even the ones that are blue cities in red states like Memphis, where at least the mayor was awake enough to welcome the help. It was this number: 20, count them, 20 federal agencies were assisting the local police. Are you freaking telling me we've got 20 federal police forces of one sort or another? The Secret Service, the U.S. Marshals, the FBI, the ATF.
DEA,
Yeah, and you can go on and on and on and on.
ICE.
None of the, well, ICE needs to have some
Well, I'm
degree
just
of
saying you were
enforcement.
talking about armed federal agencies. They happen
Yeah,
to be one.
and let's face it, IRS and the school loan people and a whole bunch of other folks that have armed agents. Great. Little Johnny's at university. He's a month behind on his loan, and the armed agents are going to show up.
A guy named Luigi shows up. He says, "I'm from the Fed. It's time for you to pay."
Well, theoretically, that's possible because such agents exist. What the hell are we thinking?
Well, it is pretty crazy. Anyway, Obama armed them all, and then he weaponized all those agencies, and Trump is trying to de-weaponize them, which I hope includes disarming them, and maybe a fire sale on cheap ammo and firearms. Because, I mean, I have firearms and I have ammo, but who doesn't need more ammo?
You can never have enough ammo until it cracks the floor of your basement.
Your basement. How did you break your concrete slab? Ammo.
Too much ammo in one spot.
Too much ammo. Yeah. You could do it too. Ammo's really freaking heavy. People don't always know. If you don't have ammo, you don't get how heavy ammo is.
Yeah. I mean, most of my ammo is properly racked and stacked, but there was some that was in a couple of those big Home Depot tubs, the black ones with the yellow lids.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
In the bottom of each of two of these huge tubs is maybe 2 layers of cartridge boxes of one sort or another.
Mm-hmm.
Anything more than that, you wouldn't be able to lift the damn box.
That's too heavy. You need a forklift.
Yeah, so I've got 2 of those, and there's nowhere near the volume. It's simply that there's like an inch or maybe 2 inches on the bottom that makes them completely unmaneuverable by any other means.
As you can see,
I have
this is what it's like when you get a couple of Groksters together. We just start wandering off on tangents. But ammo, that wasn't on the list.
Well, back to the point. Tariffs are the better way of funding the federal government. Tariffs should generally be low, but shouldn't be zero. And they should be higher for countries that insist on imposing high tariffs on us or have high value-added taxes. The reason why I say value-added taxes, I'm thinking of you, Canada, is because when you have a value-added tax, one little known feature is that export goods are not subject to value-added tax. So all the value-added tax you pay on all the pieces as you put together the vehicle, for example, the iron and steel, the wiring, the pre-made parts, until you get to the complete thing. If you buy sub-assemblies and you pay 2 or 3 layers of value-added tax, well, that's raised the cost of the vehicle, except for one thing. Domestically, that's true. But as soon as you put it on a cargo ship to come to the United States, poof, that's gone and the government gives you the VAT back.
Yeah,
the tax you paid on the components is removed and refunded.
One of the important lessons we learned when Mr. Trump announced his tariff plan was that it isn't just about tariffs. There are literally scores of other rules related to trade that drive up the prices of our products overseas that aren't actually tariffs. So he was just saying, look, the cost of our goods goes up 70%. I'm going to charge you a 70% tariff, and now it's even. And they were like, oh my God. So it's a good tactic. I don't know. It's going to the Supreme Court. I'm not sure if it's going to survive. I don't know the law well enough, but right now it's fun to watch.
It has to survive because we do have an economic emergency. We most certainly have a debt emergency, and the tariffs are helping with that. And we have a trade emergency without a doubt, because, for those that study economics, there was Ricardo. Ricardo had this theory of comparative advantage. It basically said that manufacturing will gravitate to the place where it's cheapest, and everybody will benefit. Well, that's true up to a point. Sorry, Cato, I don't agree with you, and that's not the Pink Panthers, Cato. That's the Cato organization, which are a great
CATO, yes.
CATO, not KATO, yes, because as a free market organization and a freedom and liberty organization, they are most excellent. I mean, to give you an idea of how excellent, one of their scholars was P.J. O'Rourke, author of books like Eat the Rich or Age and Guile Beats Youth and a Bad Haircut.
I have a couple of
I've got some of these books, yes. The point is that you can have free trade and you can have comparative advantage, and it works as long as you're trading with friends. As soon as you're trading with people that want to work to your disadvantage, you can't give them an even deal, because they will cheat on what they do with your trade. The perfect example of that is pharmaceuticals, which China has somewhat sucked into itself and we're trying to bring back here, and networking gear, where they are making literally cheap Chinese copies of things like Cisco routers, and most important of all, rare earth metals and magnets, which China has gone around the world assiduously with its Silk Belt and Road initiative, sucking in the raw materials the best they can and promising to refine the materials and ship them out around the world because they can do it better and cheaper. Well, they can until they don't. And they are flexing their muscles by saying to us and a number of Western nations, well, sorry, but we don't feel like shipping the rare earth metals to you anymore. Sucks to have all your high tech dependent on them, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
And
that's kind of where we are with China. It's the tariff war.
Chairman Xi is basically saying, because of course it's all about saving face in Asian cultures, you can't treat us like that. You can't be rude and bullying and expect to do business with us. And, the proper attitude is, frankly, we don't care whether you save face or not. We want to grind your face in the dirt and take over your business.
Yeah, and of course China's been interfering with the U.S. markets. It's been stealing our technology. It's been sending military age men here for years. They've been infiltrating our government. They've been doing all the things that a Chinese Communist Party would do if you assumed that they were your enemy, which they've admitted that they are. And they're
preparing for war with us, especially over Taiwan if they get the chance. Meanwhile, Taiwan has seen the writing on the wall. One of the most interesting developments in terms of onshoring production is TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corp, which is one of the biggest chip foundries in the world, is going to produce chips here.
Yeah, they can't do that fast enough.
Right, because they produce chips for their stuff based on their designs and our designs, and they produce stuff for us based on our designs because they can do it well and do it cheaply and all the usual things about. But that we want a backup manufacturing plant, and we want it in the United States because they'll protect it. And we want it just as much as they do, because if China does manage to disrupt business in Taiwan, whether they take it over or just somehow restrict shipments, we will need to have our own supplies.
We absolutely will. So let's move to a different part of the world, since
I've got one other thing on the China rare earth magnets, which you may not have seen. Some folks working out of, I think it's the University of Minnesota, have discovered a way to make incredibly good magnets by creating new compounds with nitrogen. So they're creating nitrides, in other words. And nitrides of certain metals turn out to be as good or better than rare earth metals. And
That's a good thing.
this is at the early development stage right now, but it's important. And then we're trying to open up rare earth mining in the US. We're trying to open it up in Alaska. And by the way, there's a new road going in Alaska to do mineral recovery. And of course, there's Greenland. And if we ever get access to Ukraine, there's rare earth metals there as well. The point is there's lots of it, especially if we don't make it cheap for China to send the stuff to us. If we're willing to pay just a little more, we could have plentiful supplies of all of these things.
I think we kind of have to, because we can only count on China to go to war with us at some point when they feel like they can win.
And therefore, our allies are going to buy that stuff from us if we're the ones that can mine it and refine it and manufacture it, because then they will not be under, in a stranglehold from China.
Absolutely. All right.
Middle East.
Move to Middle East. Hamas.
Well,
Gaza.
it's not the 2-syllable word Hamas. It's the 3-syllable word Takia.
Yeah.
Which is not anything about tacos and chickening out. It's about lying and dissimulating and just misleading. Misinformation, that kind of thing that Democrats hate.
Supposedly.
Except when their friends do it.
Right.
Well, so what we noticed this weekend is, in spite of the fact that the Hamas leadership, or what passes for it, because it's almost impossible to pin down these days, in places like Qatar and Egypt and others, signed on to the deal where they'd release hostages, therefore getting rid of most of their leverage, including bodies, which they started to be a little tricky on, but also that they would disarm. Well, now you start to see the wordplay. Hamas in Gaza not only isn't disarming, they're shooting their own civilians because they want absolute control, like any totalitarian terrorist group would. And they're going
they're
to
just using up their bullets.
No, they need to be wiped out, and you know it. Flammable poison gas through all the tunnels and light the match.
Well, I don't know about that, but they will lie because they're allowed to, and we know that when there's peace, all they do is rearm. So even if you did disarm them, they'd get rearmed.
Yes, but here's the money take. The leadership, the Hamas billionaires that live in Qatar and other places, the ones that Israel tried to blow up, and the loosely published story is that Trump was fuming mad with Netanyahu over these guys getting taken out in an airstrike. But knowing the way that Trump and Netanyahu tag team, I suspect that was just for face saving for the deal. In reality, I think anything that takes these leaders out and stops them being a parasite class in Qatar and Doha is probably to the liking of the emirs there anyway. But the point is that this leadership class, the billionaire class of Hamas, that have cleaned out all the money from the aid and other supplies to the so-called civilians, signed on to the idea that Hamas would disarm. Then, this weekend, they said, the resistance to the oppression in Gaza will not disarm. There's a distinction without a difference.
Sure is, unless they mean their resistance to the members of Hamas who are shooting civilians, which we know they don't.
No, they don't. In fact, Israel would cheerfully arm the clans that are willing to take on Hamas, and probably have. It's the members of those clans that oppose Hamas power that are the ones that are being singled out and executed. And they're being executed in public, and they're being executed surrounded by a cheering mob. Now, how is this possible unless every adult in Gaza, or nearly every adult apart from these clans, actually supports Hamas? And I think that's really what's going on. So there really are no innocent players in Gaza under the age of maybe 5. Because they indoctrinate the kids from a very early age.
I've noted that, much like the way liberal cities work and liberal states work, you get what you vote for. And if you support Hamas and you don't do anything to get rid of them, and maybe you don't because you're afraid of getting shot in the street, which I get, okay, I understand your situation. I mean, they are obviously killing people that, oppose them, and they're going to keep doing it. But, that's where you are. That's the part of the world you're in. You let them into power in the first place, and you've gotten the result. And if it happens again, Nobody's going to stop Israel from just bulldozing the entire area.
No.
And they wanted to do it this time, and Trump bullied everybody into saying, look, we got to stop. We need peace. We're wasting all this money on war. We should be focusing on the things that we all benefit from, right? That we can
Right.
all
I mean,
prosper from.
he's a builder. He wants to rebuild the area and make it suitable for civilian life and make it a prosperous place. For all the aid that's been sent to Gaza, if Hamas had been a government instead of a terrorist totalitarian group, the place would have been flowing with milk and honey and stacks of cash by now. And it's not. And Israel is. Why is Israel flowing with milk and honey and cash? Well, because they're builders. They cultivated the deserts, they built industry, they developed high tech. For a tiny country of a very small number of millions of people, they have achieved miracles in a very small space. And there's no reason why the West Bank and Gaza couldn't be equally prosperous if they were simply willing to say, we will live in peace and we will trade with you.
Yeah, they don't want that, though.
They don't want to do that.
It reminds me, and I made this comparison, I've made it a couple times. Inner cities and liberal cities are very similar. They get a lot of money. They spend a lot of money. They take a lot of money from the rich, supposedly. And everything gets worse. I think people need to come to the conclusion that they're not there to help you. And Hamas is not there to help anybody who lives in Gaza.
They are not, and the clans realize that, and the clans are basically their extended families that are out for their own safety, which is why they're willing to arm up and fight and occasionally get killed. It's actually, I dare to say, it's a beautiful thing to watch because the civilians of Gaza need to take over Gaza. The ones that are actually interested in peace and prosperity need to take over from the terrorists.
They absolutely do. Now, whether or not that ever happens, we'll have to wait and see.
Right. So you likened the voting in Gaza to the voting in liberal cities. It's not quite the same because you said because of a fear of getting shot. Well, if they voted for Hamas because they thought a strong Hamas would protect them from getting shot by whoever, because the Israelis take a lot of trouble not to shoot civilians, well, that's okay. But in a blue city, if you vote for the blue leadership, you're increasing your risk of getting shot because they're not going to protect you from anything, and they're not going to protect your either.
No, they're not. So we're getting long on time here, but I wanted to cover one more thing. You had sent me a note about Ayotte, Kelly, Goodlander, Maggie, and Operation Delta Dog.
I did. So first of all, let's put in a plug for Operation Delta Dog, which I believe you did in a post anyway.
I did.
They are a small but rapidly growing group in Hollis and also with an outpost in Franklin, New Hampshire now, who essentially takes rescue dogs, mostly from southern United States, where they are somewhat disposable. So they rescue dogs that would otherwise be euthanized, and they bring them to New Hampshire with the objective of training them as service dogs for veterans. And one of their most powerful slogans is, you rescue one and you save two. And what they mean by that is they rescue a dog and they save the dog and the veteran, because dogs for veterans with PTSD or other difficulties are one of the most calming things they can have, and it makes a huge difference. Anyway, the aforementioned people were there and they spoke and they did the rounds and they were very, very pro the veterans, and I don't think they were entirely putting it on. I mean, you've always got to be careful of the quid pro quo with politicians. But they made the effort, they were present, they appeared to be genuine, and they appear to be very much in favor of veterans, which is a good thing. I should also mention that Operation Delta Dog doesn't get any public money from anywhere, including the Veterans Administration. They get it all from donations.
And they should keep it that way.
They should keep it that way because they'll have less strings attached. And this is important to people looking for dogs, the dogs that get part way through the service training, but for some reason too nervous, something in their history that they can't quite outgrow, they're already partly trained. They're very good dogs, but they maybe have some special need or other. And those dogs become adoptable when they get to a certain point in the training and they maybe can't quite hack going around a crowded, noisy store or being in a crowded parking lot or something like that. That's how we got our dog, actually. We adopted
Stuart.
him. We adopted him from Operation Delta Dog because he just didn't quite hack it. And, we gradually fill in the picture of what it is that makes him nervous, and he's getting better. But he's a terrific dog, and he's totally house trained, and he does no damage. The worst thing that he can do with you is leap up and put his big paws on you because he's quite big and heavy, but he's very friendly and doesn't damage anything.
I'm familiar.
And the point is that you get a mostly trained dog with service dog instincts that just didn't quite make it through the program. And for a very modest fee that cycles back into their acquisition of another dog, you can have one of these, and you will find them up on their website.
We will continue to promote Operation Delta Dog because it is a great thing, and it is completely supported by donors, and that's the way we'd like to keep it. We have pretty much run out of time. I mean, we could talk for 2 or 3 hours and just talk about everything, but that'd be too long, and nobody would watch that.
Well, break it into parts if necessary, Steve. I get a little carried away, but
no, it's good to have you on because I didn't have to talk for 20 minutes by myself. I had help, and
and I get wound up about some of these things, and they're good ones.
They are good. Well, Mike Rogers, thank you very much for taking some time to talk with me today. It was good to see you. Where did I see you? Oh, I saw you at the...
You saw us at the other banquet, which was for Real Options.
Once upon Friday night.
Once upon a time known as CareNet, who operate 2 pregnancy help centers in New Hampshire at realoptionsnh.org for people looking for them. And they're always looking for donations. And they have some paid staff. Some paid staff, some volunteer staff, and they will help young and also not so young women needing help with a pregnancy. They will mentor couples together to improve their chances of success, and they'll provide adoption and other services if that's what's required. But they'll do everything they can to make it a live birth and a successful family.
Yep, and they offer you real choice. They're helpful no matter what you decide to do.
Yeah.
You don't get that from an abortion clinic. You don't get the counseling. You don't get the support. You don't get the emotional support. You can just go and talk to them. And, of course, they will encourage you to keep your baby, and they will show you how that's possible and help you along the way. And they really will help you, and it doesn't cost you anything, not a dime.
And they'll even deal with the fallout from abortion clinics. That is to say, if you're getting the psychological damage from an abortion, there are people that will help you with that too.
All right. Great point to end on, Mike. Thanks a lot for your time.
So that's where you saw me. It was great.
That's where I saw you. Yeah.
You know what we didn't do?
Well, I know what we didn't do. It's still sitting in my trunk.
Well, I'll swing by sometime.
It's a projector. It's not a body. It's a projector and a stand.
A projector and tripod, which you might have needed at the 3 Alliance, but luckily didn't.
I didn't, no. So I still have it, and we will get together and take care of that offline at some point soon. So
right, you can cut that.
Have a great night.
You can cut that piece off. All right.
I might not. We'll see how it goes. Thanks,
all right.
Mike.
Take care, Steve. Thanks.
See you later.
GrokTALK.